Well, everybody, thank you again for joining the Blue Dragon podcast. And on this episode, I have the honor of introducing Benny Lowers. And Benny Lowers is the author of a nice book called The Good, the Bad, and the Practical. AI for doeners in Dutch, for those who apply it, basically. So, Benny, thank you very much for joining. It's great to have you
Cool
here.
to join your podcast, Hitro.
Thanks. And for those of us who don't know you that well, can you explain a bit about your background and how you ended up writing a book on
That's
practical
quite a
AI?
story, actually. Let's say my background is I was a consultant for, let's say, more than 15 years. I was specialized in operational excellence, maintenance, management, asset management in industrial environments. And at a certain point, we saw all these emerging technologies. I think it was 2014 or something like that. And all these emerging technologies like 3D printing and virtual reality, big data analysis. We saw that coming, and our customers, they were actually a bit in doubt on what can we do with it? Do we need to do something with it? Because some technologies were already mature enough. Some were actually, let's say, a bit in their starting phase. So actually, the goal was to create a service where we could support companies in introducing and implementing all these kind of technologies. Of course, before you can do that, you need to have an idea on all these technological concepts. So we did a bit our tour in Europe to check, okay, what is virtual reality? What can you do with it in an industrial environment? And actually, instead of creating a service, we fall in love and deeply in love with the technology of augmented reality. Something totally different than AI. And our goal was, it was the let's say the phase of everyone searching for Pokemons somewhere in the streets. Now, okay, we're not going for searching Pokemons in industrial environments, but it was more, for work instructions instead of videos or papers or PDFs. You just have your virtual elements projected on the real world scenario, so you could help someone, let's say, to connect a motor or electrical motor or a generator or something like that. Like I said, was 2014, 2015. It was the beginning of the smart glasses, which was actually a bit essential because, working with tablets or smartphones, when you're a technician, for example, you need both your hands. So it's not easy to have a smartphone or a tablet in your hand. So smart glasses are quite essential. But we bumped in against let's say the slow evolution of the technology itself, the hardware. It was also not convenient. Users were, for example, you have safety glasses that you sometimes need to wear. Well, these kind of glasses, they didn't have some safety protection. Okay, some had, but it was not, it was not like we actually wanted to have. And that was simple. Market wasn't ready for it. So I learned a very valuable lesson there. How cool the technology is when the market is not ready for it, or they don't want to adopt it. Well, then you don't have a business. So at a certain point, we needed to to turn over our business a bit instead of, okay, augmented reality. But what is very important with the technology of augmented reality is having an idea of your real world environment, because you need to position all these kind of virtual elements. In that period, the concept of deep learning, computer vision, AI, it actually started there was some nice, cool project we saw. So, okay, we thought, okay, maybe with the knowledge we have with computer vision, maybe we can just turn over into a computer vision AI company. Now, okay, then you have a cool technology, but again, you need a market. Uh, and with Viewmore, we started the company with the name Viewmore. And with Viewmore, actually, at a certain moment, we find the right product market fit with computer vision AI technology in waste management. We had some cameras on trucks, and from the moment they're loading the waste, actually we already knew what's inside it. So we detect the materials in it, but also on the sorting process itself. We had some cameras to actually see, okay, how does the sorting line, how is it performing? Do we need more heavy waste in the sorting line? Light waste, for example, because I need to be a good mixture. That's more the waste sorting process. I'm not an expert in that. But actually, yeah, we did a lot of cool projects in the waste. And what we noticed was that there were a lot of companies that were doing a lot of cool and nice stuff with AI. Also, we as Humor, we worked together a bit with them, where they, with AI, it was a bit of fuel, and we built a car around it. At a certain moment, of course, you also start to create the fuel a bit. And what we actually noticed was that a lot of companies, were very good in the AI part, but they had some difficulties in connecting everything together because when you have a camera installed on a truck or on a sorting line, okay, you can detect something, but what's next? I mean, you need to do something with that detection. And sometimes it was, let's say, informing or alerting someone just on the screen, but sometimes with a buzzer or a warning light, but even also, stopping the machine or all these kind of things. So we noticed that we were not alone, but it was some kind of expertise we had, and it was my colleague. I told him that I had, as a child, I had a dream. I want to write a book, but I never had, let's say, I never had the idea that I had something to tell. It was always on, okay, what people, how can I inspire? But I don't have anything to tell. And actually, my colleague said, well, with all the things you do and with the concept you build on the AI and connecting all these stuff, that's something cool. That's something you need to tell the world. And then, it goes a bit around in your head, and no, who wants to read that? And at a certain moment, I thought, why not? And I started, and I just started writing the book, and well, that's actually the reason why there is a book, the good, the bad, and the practical. So, like I said, it's quite a story. But then immediately you have also my background.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed reading the book. It's a small book. I think, what is it, 100 pages or so, give or take. It is in Dutch. Any plans to bring out a
Well,
English version?
let's say it's when I started the book. Of course, you need to make the decision whether you write in Dutch or in English. And I thought, well, let's start in Dutch again. Always with the small voice in my head, who wants to read the book? So I thought, let's start in Dutch, and if it's popular enough, maybe we can translate it in English. So maybe with the podcast now, maybe I get a lot of questions, and well, then we can translate it in English. Who knows?
The reason I like it is because it's indeed very practical. It's no nonsense. You have a lot of experience. You explain and guide the reader through the process of choosing an AI and setting up the environment. So we're going to talk about that more, of course, in this episode. But also, I've interviewed a few other authors who said that they started in English even when they were Dutch speaking. And they say it's actually better to write in your mother language first, right, and then let it translate to English, for example. So I think you did step one very well, and if it goes wide, then
Thank you.
step two is there. So, but in your book, you talk a lot about the applying AI in the industrial setting, like manufacturing. Why is it such an ideal vertical to apply
Well,
AI?
I'd say being more in that vertical, I don't know if it's an ideal vertical. And I mean, it's a bit strange to say, but by walking around and talking around a lot with people, I see that there are, let's say, we're on two tracks in the industrial environment. You always have the companies that actually want to innovate, want to be the first, want to try and test. But there are a lot of companies, which are a bit more conservative, and actually, they want to wait. And what we also noticed with Viewmore was that, indeed, you have the let's say the top 10% actually wants to be on front of it, and then all the rest that is a bit on a sort of waiting mode to see, okay, what's going to happen. I'm sometimes a bit disappointed in let's say this mentality, because the thing is with AI, and that's also in the book, it's not something you gonna let's say you're gonna implement it in an easy way. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort. Of course, you can do a lot of things, let's say very quick, very small base. But again, if you want to have the real added value, yeah, you need to connect data with each other. So you actually have quite a large project, which, yeah, you need a lot of people also internally. You need to connect all these dots together. And you need to break silos between departments. So let's say an AI project. Yeah, well, if you look at it as in a whole, it's quite big. Of course, how to eat an elephant bit by bit. So when you want to implement something, you do it also bit by bit. And I think a lot of companies today are a bit afraid when they see the elephant. And it's not always easy to convince them, yeah, well, let's eat them bit by bit. And the thing is, of course, when do you see the added value of AI? Yeah, also that, yeah, it can take a while because sometimes you need to collect a lot of data. You need to train the model, fine tune the model. Yeah, well, it takes some time. And then, yeah, from the moment you have a model, okay, yeah, then you can start working with it. So, yeah, from the moment you see the added value, it can take some time. And also that some people, some companies, yeah, well, they actually want to go for the quick wins, which is okay. I mean, it's sometimes a strategy. So let's say an ideal environment, yeah, yes and no. Of course, I try to convince everyone, yeah, well, let's eat that elephant piece by piece, but yeah, it's difficult. And of course, some news that you sometimes read in media. Yeah, well, it's also not. Let's say sometimes you read only the negative things, because AI gonna take over your job and AI gonna. You read all these things, and yeah, sometimes people, you notice it also in meetings we have, they say, well, let's wait a bit. Let's wait a moment. It's not for us. But again, in industrial environments, if you see the potential added value, yeah, well, it's huge. I mean, I can't even imagine it myself. If you're gonna look at every single department, what you can do with AI, and then in the end you connect all these things together. I mean, yeah, well, it's huge what you can do with it. So it is an ideal environment because you have multiple departments, multiple disciplines, and that means that you also can implement multiple types of AI every time with their specific output, of course. But yeah, it's let's say the question is has a bit a double answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think also if you compare AI implementation in a service industry, it's different because in a production environment you have usually thousands or 10,000s of units of the same product that go through a factory line. So the scale there is bigger, while with the service industry it's more intangible, right? And in your book you describe a case about a tile manufacturer where you applied AI. Can you share a bit more about that use case, and then what were the main drivers for that organization to say, let's try AI?
Well, the main driver was indeed they had some difficulties. It all started with some difficulties in their quality, in the quality of the end product, and they already had some systems in place to detect good or bad quality. But yeah, let's say a textile tile, it's not that easy. I mean, you have different patterns, so also it means sometimes a pattern can be good, but sometimes it can be bad. So also when you work with AI, it's not easy to implement it. But let's say AI has the possibilities, computer vision AI in this case has the possibilities to do much more and to make these difference instead of the classic computer vision models. With classic computer vision already, I think from the 80s, you see cameras in industrial environments. But yeah, AI, it can do more, it can learn more. So let's say the output of an AI model can be, especially in certain cases where a classic computer vision model, where it is too complex. With AI, you can do a lot of stuff. So when you look at the textile company there, they had some different difficulties with quality. And actually, the first question was, okay, how can we use AI in detecting good or bad quality? Because today people are actually leaning over the process, and then they see all these styles, they pass by and they say, okay, the left one is bad one, okay, the right one, and then somebody else is let's say is on the back to get them out of the system there. So it all started there. But of course, okay, with AI we can build a nice cool implementation project on that. But then the next question is, okay, can you predict these kind of things? And yeah, well, you can if you have all the process parameters and you, let's say for a certain period of time, you collect all the good and the bad qualities. And for that same time period, you just record all the process parameters that are available. And maybe there is some kind of pattern visible in the process parameters that actually can predict the bad quality. So yeah, the next step, of course, is all right. Yeah, if we know what's good and bad, and we can record all the process parameters, yeah, well, then maybe we can predict. Let's say I say it now a bit easy because yeah, actually, what you need to do is you need an expert on that, a process expert that actually knows. Okay, if this goes wrong, and if this is okay, and this, yeah, then we get that output. So you need someone to, yeah, to let's say to create yeah, you need to pick things out of a process expert their head to actually put it on paper and in an AI model. And sometimes, okay, we noticed, okay, we need an extra process parameter, so we need to put an extra sensor on that. Or maybe we need a connection with another database where some kind of parameters are in that database. And yeah, gradually you build a sort of model where you can predict the bad quality. Okay, the next step, if you have all these kind of parameters available, yeah, maybe you can also check these parameters with the failure of a component or of the system itself. So yeah, actually gradually, again, it's a bit by bit, piece by piece, you build up something. And yeah, their first question was how to detect bad quality. And luckily for us, yeah, well, they just had someone that was a bit on the front. He was a sort of visionary, he believed in it. And of course, and that's for me the biggest thing is there is a big difference for doing an AI project versus a classic project. I mean, a classic project, it's simple. A project manager, what is his job? He managed the budget, he managed the timing, and he managed the quality of the project. These are the three most important things in a project. Well, let's say in an AI project, you don't have it. You don't have the three. You don't know what the output will be because your model, it's still a black box. You need a lot of data, so you don't have an idea of the output. Yeah, so you don't have an idea of the timing, and yeah, you don't have an idea on the budget. So that's why you need actually people that believe in it. They want to take a risk. Again, today, the added value of an AI project, well, there is no risk. There will always be added value. So yeah, luckily these guys, they understand it. They understood it. So
Yeah, I think also with manufacturing, that vertical, there is a lot of emphasis on EHSQ, the environment, health,
yeah.
safety, and quality. I used to work for an organization in Belgium that had the manufacturing as their client base, and when I visited those manufacturing sites, which are literally football
Mm-hmm.
fields big, the first thing you see when you drive into the parking lot is a big sign that says X
Yeah,
days
yeah, yeah,
without
yeah, indeed.
incident, right? Because they really have a safety
Yeah.
and quality culture there. So in that manufacturing environment, if you go from AI can help increase
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
EHSQ, one of those parameters, or even more, or combined, I
Yeah,
think that's a
indeed.
great entry
Yeah,
point there.
quality and safety.
Nice.
Yeah, well, they're quite obvious. I mean, okay, safety is a bit more difficult because yeah, quality. Okay, it's economics, of course. Quality you can translate in numbers. Safety, well, in my opinion, you can also translate that in numbers. But yeah, sometimes yeah, when there is an accident, okay, some companies, yeah, well, it's difficult for them to start a safety project. Everyone puts safety on the highest priority, but yeah, well, it's sometimes difficult. So on safety, it's quite easy because it's obvious. The same with quality, but indeed with quality, yeah, let's say the trigger is sometimes a bit bigger than with safety. Again, of course, you have the exceptions on companies. Also, one of the waste companies, we did a project. Yeah, well, there was also a project where we could detect people walking around between trucks. So yeah, well, there were a lot of near accidents. The safety managers they didn't, yeah, they couldn't capture it. So again, with some anonymous data and anonymous let's say persons to detect, and you detect trucks, you can actually check on near accidents. So not to punish people, but just to have an idea. Okay, what is going on the site? So again, a lot of a lot of companies are actually working on safety, but quality is let's say the most thankful.
Yeah, I like that approach as well. And what I also like is, like, from your experience, that it starts with quality, and then detecting bad quality product and eliminating from the end result. But then they move up, like, can we predict it, and all the way to can we prevent it even, right? And have the right conditions for success. So I really like that, the approach there. So then, I don't know if you've seen that video from, it's already 10 years old, from Microsoft in, what is it, 2015 it was. And they showed a manufacturing setting where they had two rooms, or two sites. And one was that were with the existing cameras, and they hooked up AI to it. And then with video or object recognition, they could recognize the machinery and the equipment in that room. And then with some business rules, they detected that some heavy jackhammer or drill hammer was standing up in an unsafe position because it can fall over and tip over easily.
Yeah.
And then the operator that was in that room would get an alert on his smartphone, ruggedized, saying that thing is in an unstable position. Please, put it safely down.
Indeed.
He did it, and the policy violation got automatically resolved with AI.
Yeah, indeed.
So those are really nice cases.
Yeah, because with AI object recognition, like you said, you can train the model to recognize everything. So actually, again, the AI part, for me, it's the most easiest part, because there are a lot of smart people that are capable to train let's say perfect, not perfect, but 99.99% accurate models. The thing is, of course, what are you going to do with it? I mean, the end result, that's the most important thing, because like I said, the AI model, it just sends a signal. And what's the next step? What are you gonna do? You're gonna alert an hidden operator, or do you gonna stop the machine automatically? But what happens then? Because actually we did a project also in a textile company, and with every let's say mistake we detected on weaving the pattern, we stopped the machine. Now, at a certain moment, they had some difficulties with the quality of their basic fiber. What actually happened was our system, it stopped the machine. Let's say 5 times per minute, because it goes quite fast. At a certain moment, we got a call, guys, we have a problem because your system shuts our machine, our availability of the machine, it goes way down. So we need to solve that. So actually, in this case, stopping the machine wasn't the right action. I mean, okay, let's say it was the good action, but for them, there was actually a task to decide, okay, what's primary in this case? Is it, sometimes let a bad quality pass, or do we gonna stop the machine? What happens then? Because when our input is bad, and so, I mean, there is a lot of logic from the moment you have the AI signal to determine what we're gonna do. So it depends indeed. Right. So, for example, indeed on safety, you can get an alert. Yeah, but again, when you alert the person, we did some tests with the smartwatches, etc. Sometimes you can send alerts as much as you want, but they just ignore it. I mean, why? I don't know, but they just do. So then in the end, your AI system performs well, but the end result is still not what you want. So that's why I think, speaking for myself, I think my consultancy experience from the past, working with people on the floor, I think it helped a bit to, let's say, to create the right action from the moment the AI model detects something, because it goes further than detection.
And that also hints to the transformative impact AI brings to an organization. Not only does it do magic in technological sense in that way, but it also impacts the culture, the processes. Indeed. You have to rethink, perhaps even challenge existing assumptions. So that's great. That's good. So actually what you're saying is that if you implement an AI project, be prepared to also tackle these questions. It goes further than just your AI project.
Indeed. I have an example where a company puts a lot of data in an ERP system. It's quite good, quite well. The thing is, when you download the data to perform some AI actions on it, you cannot do much with it. Okay, you can do something, but you need to clean up the data beforehand. Now, I know that it's a classic step in data analytics to clean up your data. But again, actually, for me, you solve the problem at the source, at the root cause. And that means that you need to have a system in place where people can actually add the right data already in the system itself. Also, that means that when you're setting up your ERP, you already take into account, okay, later on we need the data to do that, that, and that. So probably it's better to have the data, let's say, in that way in our system. And yeah, these are small examples, but yeah, you notice that a lot of companies today are not yet ready to do all these things. So that's why I understand, of course, like I said, it's a bit on two tracks. I understand, of course, a lot of companies say, "Hey, we're not ready yet." I read a research from Cisco where they said, okay, all these, that was CEOs and multinationals say, okay, they knew that AI could bring them into trouble on competitive level when they not start with it within 1 year. But they also said, okay, well, 70% of it, well, the IT infrastructure was not ready to let's say, to work with large AI data, but also the data itself, what they had in their companies, 80% told that they actually were not ready to connect data into each other. So that means that these kind of companies, before they actually can start with an AI project, they actually need an investment on IT infrastructure and they need an investment on the data part. So yeah, well, you have two large projects upfront your AI project. So I understand that there is some hesitation on it, that some companies need to say, okay, maybe we need to sit down and think about it. Maybe we need to have a strategy on that. And of course, yeah, the world is taken over by AI. Sometimes in companies it doesn't go that fast. So yeah, they need to, let's say, get their head around it to say, right, and now we're going to create an AI strategy. We're going to put some budget on it. We're going to put some priorities in it. But of course, yeah, first they need to have a grasp on everything that happens around them. And yeah, when you read the news, and especially when you follow all the technology news, well, it goes crazy. It's the speed of the technological evolution. It goes crazy. So I really don't know how, yeah, these companies, yeah, how they're gonna cope with it, because I really don't know what's gonna happen. But when it goes on that speed, and the adoption rate is, let's say, the speed as it today, well, that's something, yeah, needs to happen. Maybe the evolution stops or it slows down, or then need to go a sort of adoption rate that needs to be much higher than it is today. So that's for me something I really can't predict what's going to happen. So I'm quite curious what's going to happen.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Well, in the book, you also describe a whole section on, let's say, best practices or tips and tricks, and especially like what could go wrong with implementing AI, and then you give solutions to that. So, what are some key takeaways there? What can go wrong with
Well,
implementing
I think
AI?
we already discussed a few. What can go wrong? First is the first question you always need to ask: is AI the best for this job? I mean, some technologies sometimes are way better. I mean, today everybody throws AI at a problem, but that's not necessarily the right solution for it. So that's always the first step. I mean, sometimes it's easier with a classic project that's which you can manage better than an AI project. So that's the first question. Um, the second question, of course, is what are we going to do with it? What is the output? What I always try to do is start from the output and then go back. What do we need? Because indeed, if you start with the data, yeah, it's logical. Of course, every data part you can collect, yeah, just collect it. That's an easy strategy today. But that doesn't mean that you already know what to do with it. That depends on what you want to do with it. So I actually always go back from the end goal, because sometimes with a very easy system with, for example, one camera and one external data point, you can actually build something. Okay, if you start already from the beginning, maybe you set up a full data strategy and you do all these things, and in the end it takes time and time and time, and the end result is after 2 years maybe still zero, because yeah, you didn't try. So sometimes it's just trial and error, and then there is nothing wrong with it. So, of course, data, we already discussed it. Data, it's quite important in AI. It's a quite easy saying, garbage in is garbage out. So also there, for that reason, you need to know what to do with it. So also you need to know, okay, which data do I need? Which AI model do I need? But again, yeah, like I said, the next step is, okay, what are we going to do with it? So the added value, sometimes it's not only the technology, it's indeed what are we going to do with it? Are we going to stop the machine, like I already said? Okay, how are we going to do it? What is the impact, suppose, if we're going to do that? So yeah, the book it's a sort of checklist with a lot of questions you need to ask yourself before you start an AI project. It's maybe it looks a bit much, but yeah, well, actually, some questions are also quite easy to answer. But yeah, let's say for me, the biggest one, of course, is data. That's everything can go wrong there, of course.
So let's take an example. We have an IT decision maker listening to this episode saying, "Okay, this is interesting. Let's start with the quality business driver. Great, and then we can move towards predictive and then preventive. Great, but the other thing that might be interesting is the hardware
Mhm.
side of things. And in your book, you also describe edge processing versus cloud processing. Can you give a bit more of background about that and give some best practices to
Yeah,
make a
well, let's
decision
say
here?
all the projects I worked, if I did, they all had the edge processing because, yeah, you did something on the machine itself and you need a direct communication link with the machine or the operator. Of course, there's no problem to do that in the cloud, but yeah, let's say if you have all the processing power on the machine side itself, it goes faster. But okay, you need an extra device. But in the end, the edge devices today, with actually quite good GPUs on it, well, budget is not that high today anymore. So actually, it depends a bit indeed on the implementation you want. If you want to go for edge or cloud, if you have especially with computer vision, of course, you have a continuous what they call inference. Let's say detecting objects in a frame or for classification parts or something like that. So actually, yeah, when you have a continuous stream of data coming in, you need the inference doing continuously. Yeah, well, sometimes it's better to do it at the edge on the machine itself. But again, if you have some kind of software running on your computer, yeah, that is already connected with the cloud, yeah, maybe it can run on the cloud. If you have some batch inference where you just collect a lot of data and then later once in a day or once an hour you do your inference, yeah, well, maybe that's better in the cloud, for example. It actually depends a bit on the project you have, on the things you want to do. Speed is of course important, the reaction speed. But also, yeah, is there actually a connection with internet available? Because when looking in manufacturing, yeah, a lot of machines, but these machines are not connected to the internet. Not all. I mean, also there is an evolution, of course. They're not connected to the internet, so sometimes it's even better to have your, yeah, let's say, your system to keep it locally, because yeah, security can be a thing. If you connect your machines to the internet, you have your operational IT and your IT connecting together. Well, we know that there is always a risk on the security side in IT, but from the moment they are connected, there is also a risk that they can access your machines, which means have access to your recipes that you have in your machine, for example. So also there, maybe you say, well, for security reasons, we don't connect our systems to the internet. Yeah, then you create a local environment where you can do your processing locally. So it depends a bit. Also there is not a clear answer, but yeah, sometimes, like I said, security or connection reasons or speed, these are, yeah, let's say, the parameters you take into account.
Wonderful. I think another point that is interesting as an IT decision maker is once you have the model set up and it's in production, there's also the concept of retraining or updating the model with new training data. So how does that go in practice? Is that something that happens every X months or once a
Well,
year?
also
How
that
do you
depends a
see
bit
that?
on the project itself. I mean, for example, when you have in manufacturing, what you have there, you have machines always producing the same product. So that means that actually the environment, it's not changing a lot. And especially when you also encapsulate, for example, your camera, in this case, when you talk about camera, when you encapsulate it, that means that your environment always stays the same. So from the moment your system is trained, if nothing changed, it will do its thing for whole years that are left. If your environment is changing, or sometimes you have new products, well, then you train your model. If, for example, when is retraining? Sometimes when it's an example is on the trucks, for the waste trucks, like I told. What you can have there is that, for example, weather conditions. Well, they can be sunny, it can be rainy, it can be foggy. I mean, what you do there is you try to capture all these different kinds of conditions, because your light conditions, they are a bit different. That means that your picture you get from these cameras, it looks a bit different. Sometimes your AI model can deal with it, but sometimes not. So that means that you retrain it. Then you just retrain it in function of, let's say, the context or the situations you have. Of course, because I tell you now, we know that we need all these data up front. So what we try is to get these data up front. But suppose you don't know that, if you have conditions you cannot predict, then you just retrain from the moment it's necessary. Of course, you also retrain from the moment you notice that something is going on with your model. And I mean, it's still a bit of a black box. So if you notice, my model always did its job, but now, it's quite a bit strange. And well, then maybe it's something because some small parameters are changing, or maybe your environment changed a bit, but you didn't notice. So then you'd retrain the model. So it's a bit, I call it ad hoc training a bit more. But again, if there is a reason to train it every X months of every week, well, it's of course no problem. The thing what I don't see today, especially not in industrial environments, is the concept of continuous training. I mean, it's not when you have when your model has an error, a false positive, that you say, okay, we're gonna put that image in our training set, we're gonna retrain. Well, that's not necessary. I don't see it. I hope it's in the future. Probably, maybe it will go like that. From the moment there is an error, you retrain, and it has a large effect. But today you notice that you need let's say, a specific amount to retrain your model to have an effect on the model. One image, for example, and a training batch of 1,000 models, 1,000 images. Well, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
So, in your opinion, looking forward, what do you think about the rise of ML ops, machine learning operations? I'm coming from a software development background. We had DevOps, where we were having a whole pipeline to help updates push out faster, once every 2 weeks instead of once a year, to help or increase the user experience, right? If you take a look at that and you translate that to AI, you got the AI ops or ML ops. From your perspective, how is that trending? Is that rising in importance? How do you see
The
that?
thing is, like I said, I'm still searching for, let's say, the front runners that actually gonna say, okay, we have our own AI department in our company. From the moment you have that, well, probably there will be some pipelines set up on the different AI models you have to, let's say, manage all these things. Today, I see a lot of projects and proof of concepts, and so it will rise. I mean, it has its advantages, of course, but it has its advantages, in my opinion, from the moment there is some kind of let's say, maturity level in the AI implementation of the company. So when you have a proof of concept, for example, well, it's just trial and error. I mean, okay, maybe it also can be a bit more efficient on that, but there you need to have, in my opinion, you need to have more things under control yourself. From the moment you have a quite mature organization on that, and well, I think it has its benefits, of course. So it depends on which phase you are, and also if you are an AI implementation company, probably your go with the company until, let's say, the proof of concepts, and from the moment the implementation starts, well, then hopefully you just hand it over to the company itself, because I'm a fan of all the AI implementation companies that exist today. But in the end, I really hope that there will be specific departments, AI departments within every company. Departments that go department wide, because like I said, you need to break down silos between all these different people.
Great answer there. Thanks for that insight. So, with that said, we're reaching towards the end of this episode. I want to wrap up with the book and then about you and your future. So, how is I think, when did the book came
Last
out?
year,
Recently, right? Last year or
it's
something? Yeah. So, how is the book?
well,
How is the book doing?
it's doing good. I mean, it's again, it's a bit on two tracks. Like I said, you have let's say the fast track, people that actually want to be the front runner, and yeah, you noticed in the beginning that there was a lot of let's say positive feedback on it, and yeah, you actually see it also now. The book is selling, but yeah, let's say the front runners, they already have it. I hope, otherwise it's still available. But now, yeah, you're looking for the, let's say, the next ones, the guys that are a bit, yeah, they wait and see. Well, now I'm looking for the wait and see guys to buy the book. I think for me, the goal was to have let's say, just to inspire people and to have a first idea of what AI can do. And indeed, with a small checklist if you want to start with it. So yeah, the front runners, they already did it. So now the next ones.
Nice. So, last question: what type of tips or principles can you give to IT decision makers thinking about adopting AI practically?
Well,
in
the
their
thing is, don't be
organization?
afraid. I mean, that's the most important one. I understand it. I mean, sometimes when I read all these things, I think from, whoa, what is this? I mean, it's yeah, it's huge. Everyone's talking about it, and if you go to receptions, or network receptions, for example, and you talk about AI, then you have it. Do you have it? Oh yeah, no, yeah. Oh yeah, I know. Oh, you feel that. Yeah, they want, but they don't know how. And so yeah, let's say the first thing is, don't be afraid and just embrace it. And again, I know it's an elephant. I know, but yeah, bit by bit. And there are a lot of people, maybe also inside your company, but certainly outside your company, that actually can support you in that have indeed experience in implementing these kind of things. They know where to search for, to look for, to begin with. So yeah, but the most important tip is, don't be afraid.
Great. Now, if people want to reach out to you and get some consultancy from you or some expert insights, what's the best way for
Well,
them
they
to
always
contact you?
can contact me through LinkedIn, or just first check the website, Applicate. And Applicate is written in the English, Applicate, but in the end, it's AI. The Kate is CAITE. So from let's say, Applicate, the AI part. So no, they can always search for the website, or also the contact details, or just yeah, you can send me an invite on LinkedIn. Always nice to follow people, and especially their interest.
Great, wonderful. We'll do that. We'll also add the links and the contact details there. Benny, thank you so much for joining this episode. Really wonderful. I love the book. Very practical. It's the first time that AI gets de-hyped and you show it with real cases in industries and mainly. So really nice. Thank you for joining.
All right.
And have
Thank
a great
you,
day.
Jethro.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Blue Dragon Podcast, a podcast dedicated to IT decision makers and helping them gain perspective of what's going on in cloud, AI, and security. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel so you'll be up to date all the time when new episodes come out. Your support really means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Have a great day and see you next time.